Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight. Today we're going to look at another French classic. This time not from Citroën, we're going to look at Peugeot today. It's the Peugeot 304. The Peugeot 304 was first launched at the Paris Motor Show in 1969 and had a long run all the way till 1980. But really, the Peugeot 304 story doesn't really start there. It really starts in April 1965 when the Peugeot 204 was launched. Yes, essentially the Peugeot 304 was a 204, at least in the middle section. It had the same interior space in it. This Pininfarina designed car, although had many similarities with the 204, it did feature the front end more closely resembling the newly launched Peugeot 504, and the boot had another 15 centimeters or so tacked on the end, making it look like a more substantial car. And overall it was a very successful car. Not as successful as a 204, but certainly very successful, because really it kind of like opened a new sort of size niche for Peugeot, and it really tapped into that. Inside it had a few more sort of luxuries and comfort features. It had a thicker seat, etc., and there was more sort of like specifications you could add on to it. Today's brochure is actually from the UK and it is from 1978, and straight away you can really see that sort of front end resembling a Peugeot 504. Interestingly, with this brochure there is some errors in it. These are actually stickers which are actually over the mistakes. Originally this would have said SLS, showing the higher specs model, but they put GL on here because this isn't the SLS, it's just the GL model, and that follows all the way through, where the GL has got a sticker over saying SLS covering the mistake, so it must have been a lot cheaper just to put these stickers over the mistakes. Also, interestingly, with this brochure, it does have a UK dealer stamp showing South Milford. But anyway, let's dig into this brochure and see what we can see about this Pininfarina designed car. And here we are straight into the first page when it's showing us the 304 saloons, and I think a very understated but very attractive looking car. And that kind of like sums up Peugeot in many ways. They were a much more conservative marque than Citroën, but still very attractive, and I guess that sort of conservative approach and making these attractive cars really won over Citroën, really, because we always think about Citroëns as being extreme long distance comfortable cars, but Peugeots were also very robust and extremely comfortable. It did have independent front wheel drive and disc brakes, and in fact it rode and handled much better than its competition, and including it was even better than some of its more expensive competition as well, and it really did sell well, selling almost 1.2 million of these. It featured a 1.3 litre engine, and as it shows in here, it's showing two models, the GL and what it's claiming as being the sporty SLS. However, they both shared a 1.3 litre engine, or in fact 1290 cc's. The only real difference was the SLS had a twin choke carburettor, helping it produce a bit more horsepower and increasing the top speed. But anyway, let's turn the page and see what else we can see about this Peugeot 304. And then straight into the second place, and this page, I should say, not place, straight into the second page, and this is really where the mistakes start. I don't know if you can quite make it out, but you can see that's a sticker saying GL where it originally said SLS. So this is the more basic model, but it's showing on there, it's telling you about this. There's still a lot of standard equipment on there, and you can even add an optional steel sunshine roof, as it describes it as, and a metallic paint finish. It ends by saying, if you want a well-built and refined family saloon, the Peugeot 304 GL will suit you. Now, as we're on this page, one of the drawbacks with the Peugeot 304, even though it did have these nicer, thicker seats over the 204, the interior space was the same. So in some ways, it was a step down from the 204 because there wasn't as much room in the car, particularly for rear seat passengers, because of them thicker, more comfortable seats. So it certainly wasn't a roomy car over the 204, that's for sure. But like I say, it was an extremely successful car nevertheless. And here is a really lovely page showing many different shots and angles of the Peugeot 304 GL, showing you all its little nice features, in particular, like I say, that larger boot, which was a reasonably sized boot for the size of the car, but certainly very nicely styled, while it kind of like sweeps away to the back. It also shows lots of little features like this drop down spur wheel and that very sort of like, I guess, functional but plain dashboard we'll describe it as. Now the GL, like I say, wasn't the only model in the range, so let's turn the page and see what else we have to offer. Now as we get to the SLS, you can see straight away we get a standard, that sort of steel sunroof. That's quite a generous equipment on a small car for its time. Particularly stands out these blue seats, and now we've got head restraints. Look extremely French, don't they? A very Peugeot looking seats, and they do look extremely comfortable. Again, you can see how thick they are in a small car, again, and that impeded the rear seats somewhat. But a well equipped car, this one, and it gives you a little bit of a description of the equipment on here. Electric screen, washers, halogen headlamps. We've now got things like reversing lights, etc. So a step above, but certainly looks quite a luxurious car for a small car of its time. Now we move on to what I always think of when I think of Peugeots, the estates. Now there was one difference with the saloon. The saloon was manufactured between September 69 and July 79. The estate came out 1 year later, so that came out in September 70. And ran a little bit longer as well. It went till May 1980. Two models again. We start off with the GL. There's no sticker on this one. They did actually manage to print this one correctly. And the next model is the SL, so not the SLS anymore, just the SL. So we're back to the more basic version here, but like I always think of these big Peugeot estates, extremely practical. Now we move on to my favourite model in the book, the SL estate. Specifically like these, the how well Peugeot do estates, first of all, with this hatch, with this very low loading area because of this thin chrome bumper. It works really well as an estate, even a smaller estate like this. It shows the seats, how they fold down, you can make that bed, which seemed to be very popular in the 70s to have seats that did that. But my favourite part about the SL is the load area. It had this kind of like a mahogany vinyl floor with these like rubber runners on them, making it look really, really classy. They also did that on the higher spec 504 estates as well. I've never actually seen that in real life, but I think it looks really, really classy and really good on these estate models. Peugeot, like I said, made really good estates, whether there was the huge 504 or this smaller 304. An extremely practical car all round, and they still managed to make them quite a handsome looking car. These beautiful seats look fantastic on here as well, which made for a cheap or sort of like reasonably cheap car, but certainly had them sort of luxury features in a robust, functional vehicle. I'm not surprised that they did sell so well. On the back page now we can see the specification page, and interestingly, if you notice the engines, the GL estate is actually using a smaller engine. It's only got an 1127cc, the XK5 engine, giving it a little bit more miles per gallon, but no doubt a slower vehicle. I guess that was the basic package, the GL estates, because even the GL Saloon and the SL estate had that 1290cc engine in it, and it wasn't really much difference in miles per gallon. On the right hand side you can see all the specifications, the equipment levels that they got, some standard, some optional, and that really comes to the end of this particular brochure. And I've also included this back page for a couple of reasons. It shows all the models there, but more important, it shows them running down a motorway, and really that's what the Peugeot 304 was about. At the time when it first came out, auto routes were just opening up, and there really was a need for cars to travel at higher speeds in comfort. And that's one of the reasons why the Peugeot 304 became the best, or at least one of the best selling cars on the market for that size of vehicle. The other reason I've included in this page is for that nice dealer stamp. It shows 1978 and this South Milford dealership RT Ward. I wonder what's there today. So there we go, the Peugeot 304. Certainly compromised in some areas, but Peugeot was really clever, weren't they? They turned that 204 into a 304 with some minor tweaks. Created this sort of like new sort of niche segment, if you will, and really helped sell cars. Peugeot was a really sensible manufacturer. And I guess that's really why it outlasted companies like Citroën, although I'm not saying anything about Citroën. I do love Citroën, it's one of my favourite marques, but that real wackiness really costed it in the end. So drawbacks with the 304, yes, it was a compromise car because really it was a 204. Interior space wasn't great. They put those thicker seats in there, and that really compromised rear passengers. In some ways, there was more room in a 204, which is kind of like weird to say that when this is a bigger car. Other compromises, we can say this about most 70s cars. They did have rust issues, but they were an extremely robust vehicle. So in warm climates, they really lasted well, and they can be still on the road today. But in some sort of wetter climates like the UK, rust was an issue, as it was for 99.9% of vehicles in the 70s. Thank you so much for watching Quarterlight today. Please do like and subscribe to be more brochure reviews in the near future. And I really enjoy making these videos. I hope you enjoy watching them as well. But for now, we'll say take care and goodbye.